Hi everyone, my name is Min and today I want to do a book review for the title is called A Date by John Gottman. Yes, John Gottman and his wife Julie Schwartz, and they're both PhDs. I got this book from a recommendation from someone online. It was he's a relationship specialist teaching women how to understand men, and he highly recommended this book. Now this book is actually pretty good, but for me it kind of seemed more like it's good if you're in a relationship rather than you're dating, going on a date, and which he highly recommend before you guys get intimate. Get this book. When I read it, I'm like, I mean, for me, that's just me. But what I did love, it was a page. Let me see. Let's see what chapter that was. It was so awesome that I actually printed out. It's called Fight, Fear, and Repair Guide. And this part is my favorite section. The reason is because, sometimes when we fight and we argue, it actually gives you like a blueprint of what to say to each other. And this is why it's perfect when a couple is on the same, they have the same destination, they have the same goals in mind, and that's what makes a good relationship. All right, the main thing is that two people has to want to make it work, and that calls for a great relationship. And the main thing about that, another thing that adds to it's how you repair when you have fights. What do you do? And I feel like this particular chapter is perfect because it talks about, it gives you actually like a little roadmap. Like every night you guys will have a conversation, like for example, step one, each person takes turn to talk about what they were feeling during that fight. Were you feeling sad, angry, worried, lonely, ashamed, unappreciative, defensive, or any other emotion and feelings? Perhaps you were feeling out of control or confused. And in step two, each person should talk about how they saw the situation and their perspective about what actually happened in the argument. And it says here, keep in mind that you may have two very different realities of what happened, but both are right. Avoid contesting who remembers it better. And that is so true, right? Because when it's almost like something happened and there's only two people there, right? But there's always three sides to the story. Part A, part B, and part C, I was gonna do this, is the judge. Okay, that is like the truth, actually the truth. Because many times we can all see a movie, right? Let's just say 5 people saw a movie and everyone may have different perspective. So that's the same thing when you're both getting to something, like when you have a disagreement or argument and things like that. And that's why it's so important to try to understand and validate each other. And it's not always about who is right, who is wrong, right? That does not solve any problems, right? You remember that saying, you're trying to beat the battle, but you lost the war? You see? So it's not always about winning. The real thing about winning is winning that person over. How to win that person over is how you win. And that's how I just feel like when you validate each other and let each one know that you understand and you hear them, and stop trying to argue who's right or wrong, who remembers it better. The best thing to do is, what can we do? How can we move forward, right? Like example, let's just say something that someone says that triggers you, right? Example, like if someone says, call you, let's just say a nickname, baby. And sometimes people don't want to be called baby. And sometimes, I know it sounds weird, but people get triggered. So identify what the triggers are, and it says it right here, trigger in some regrettable incidents, right? Triggers. They're old, enduring vulnerabilities that occur before this relationship. And it's so true. Triggers, like, it could be something that happened in the past. Something that someone says that triggers you. Could be a movie you watch, something you could relate to, or just, from your parents growing up, things like that. Those triggers can absolutely follow you, Um, so, it's I'm gonna give you some little example in this book. At a time when I felt judged, excluded, humiliated, disrespected, felt abandoned, and sometimes it doesn't have to be your partner doing that too. It's just a old memory, that happened, and that's what triggers are. All right, so that's why it's so good to understand each other, and it's not you. Sometimes it's not you, and don't make it about you. If you don't make it about you, you will. I just feel like ta-da, you will be cured and healed from any little nonsense you have in your head, because it's not you. You didn't do it. It's about the other person. So let's focus on them, and when it's your turn, we'll focus on you. And that's the beauty of this chapter that I love so much. And you accept responsibility, own up to your partner fight. Perhaps you've been overly stressed or preoccupied, or haven't made time for your partner, or you haven't been a good listener. What can you own up to, and how you contribute to the argument? It's important to avoid blame here. We discovered in our research that taking responsibility, even for a small part of the problem in communication, presents the opportunity for great repair, which is highly effective. You see? So discuss how you both might be doing things differently next time. Same thing I just mentioned earlier. Like, what can you do next? And this is all about solving problems so you don't go back to that. And that's like my favorite chapter of this book. And yes, this book says more like, the next step talks about sex, things like that. So I'm not saying it's useless. It's, 8 dates for the fun of it. And it has like little exercises. So I do think this is pretty good. And I did buy 2 copies because he mentioned, hey, buy 2 copies, and whoever you're dating, give them one, and you both read one. And I think this is a great exercise for you both for a healthy relationship. So yes, I do highly recommend. So if you read this book, I want to hear your take on it, and have you used any of the exercises and how it contributes to your relationship. All right, thank you. Bye.